Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Panthers Sports Report. I'm Dr. Mike Prince, and we are live from Raising Cane's in Cypress, Texas, where we'll get a chance to talk, of course, each and every week with the head football coach for the Prairie View A&M University Panthers, Coach Shotgun Willie Simmons. We're going to take us a break, and we'll come right back with our opening segment for this week's edition of the Sports Report.
To be a champion, you must win. 10 teams strive, but on Judgment Day, only one can rise. December 3rd in Houston, Texas. Be a part of the experience at the 2016 Toyota SWAC Football Championship in NRG Stadium. A champion will rise. Visit www.swac.org for more information.
Hello, this is Dr. Mike Prince with the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Just want to remind you that we are in the middle of our listening partner drive. For one small donation of $72 a year, you can help us continue to bring you shows like the Willie Simmons Show, the Mike Prince Show, the Sports Report, and all of our local, high school, and regional coverage. Your donation does make a difference. Visit our website today at OBN-Radio.com and make your donation today.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're live here from Raising Cane's here in Cypress, Texas, off of Spring Cypress Road over here along with Coach Shotgun Willie Simmons. Coach, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Mike. How's it going?
All right. Rough week in the Cotton Bowl on this past weekend. But when you get a chance to look at the things and analyze things, it probably is not as bad as it may appear. A few things here and there, but enough for me trying to analyze. Let's go back and get some recap on things on how it looked for you and the Panthers this past weekend.
Well, the first thing I want to do is tip my hat to Grambling. I mean, they did what they needed to do to win the game. You had two undefeated teams in the conference playing head to head, and arguably the marquee game of the year, and a game full of emotion, a game full of passion. But again, it boils down to some simple things, and that's execution, effort, making plays when plays are needed, and they did that more so than we did. We talked about the maxims for last week's game. We said it started up front. It was going to be critical as which team could dominate the line of scrimmage. And you look at the rushing stats, they ended up with 289 yards, with 96 rushing yards. We only had 84. And so, of course, they did a better job of dominating both sides of the line of scrimmage. We said it was going to come down to, I think it was another one of the things we said was playing smart. Even though they had more penalties than we did, the timeliness of our penalties, we had more pre- and post-snap penalties, false starts, personal fouls, things of that nature, offsides, things that went before the ball is snapped. And those were penalties that kill drives or extend drives if you're on the defensive side. So, didn't think we played very smart. And we just didn't execute and make plays. We calculated it. There were about 148 plays total run on offense and defense. And once every coach calculated their number of missed assignments, we had about 140. And so you look at it on about every single play, somebody wasn't doing their job. And it's tough to beat average football teams if you play that poorly, let alone a team such as Grambling, who's shown the last couple of years that they're one of the premier teams in the league. So, we didn't do enough, and that falls on me. As a head coach, it's my responsibility to get the guys to play at a high level, to give them a game plan that they can execute. And obviously I fell short in that goal and aspiration. So, it's back to the drawing board for us as a coaching staff, as a team. And I only know one way, and that's to go back to work. So after you get beat, after you have a huge defeat or letdown, the only thing I know is to go back to work. And we did that yesterday. I thought the guys had a spirited practice. Hopefully we'll have another one today. And we're going to get prepared to go and play an Alabama State team that got their first win last week that'll try to come in and be a homecoming spoiler for us.
Now, Coach, a lot has been made emphasis on that you jump out to a 16-0 lead, and things look like they're going to be on cruise control. And the word that jumps out right now is probably complacency. But I could think of a word of not finishing something that you started. At that point in the game, when it's 16-0, what is it that you're telling your team right now, and when did you feel this thing starting to slip away?
Well, we knew there was going to be a 60-minute ball game. We talked about that all week. We talk about that every week. The game has never been won in the first 5 minutes of the game. The games have been won in the first 12 minutes of the game, or 15 minutes. You have to play 60 minutes against good football teams, and we didn't do that. We came out, had a couple of big plays early, got a safety on the first drive, got the ball and drove down the field, and we actually got a first down on a penalty by them in the first drive. So we would have gone 3 and out had they not had a hands to the face penalty that extended the drive and allowed us to hit a big touchdown on the first drive, and then got it back, and Dwayne Tucker made a phenomenal play, outran the defense on the second touchdown. So it was 16-0, but it was still maybe 8 minutes left to go in the first quarter. So we still had another 40-something minutes left in the game to play, and I think our guys kind of thought, kind of been our saying the whole year. I think this team at this point still thinks things are going to come easy for us. I think with the success we had last year, with us being picked to win the West, I think sometimes this team feels like people are just going to roll over because we put on purple and gold, or in this case came out in brand new white uniforms and things of that nature. And they got to understand that you're going to get everyone's best shot. When you're the team with the brand new stadium, when you're the team that's picked to win the league, you're going to be the team that everybody's shooting for. And this is a position that this program hasn't been in a long time. We haven't been the hunted. We've always been the hunter, having to chase the Gramblings of the world, the Southerns of the world, the people like that who have been perennial powers over the last 20 or 30 years. Prairie View hasn't been that. That's what we're trying to get to and trying to build to. And for our young men, we have to understand there's a different mindset that you have to take when you're in that position. When you're the one that everyone's gunning for, you got to outwork everyone. Whether you're LeBron James or Tiger Woods or Serena Williams or any other phenomenal athlete, they know that they're always going to get their opponent's best shot. And if they don't prepare as if that's going to be the case, Floyd Mayweather, you're going to be disappointing. And so we had a letdown, but as always, I think you learn more. And I told the team, I said, some of us learn by people talking to us. Some of us learn by reading books and motivational speeches and listening. But the majority of us learn through failure and through letdown, and because that pain lingers. And when you start thinking about taking a break or taking time off, that pain still stays there for, okay, I remember how that feels to get beat. And so now our guys know that feeling. We know it in conference. We knew it playing against Texas A&M, but we hadn't had that feeling in conference in 10 games. And so now that we have that feeling, I think now it kind of opens our guys' eyes a little bit more to realize, okay, the stuff that Coach Simmons is saying and that the coaching staff is saying is true. We have to outwork our opponent. We have to be in better condition. We have to execute better than they do if we're going to have a chance to be successful. So even in letdown, the game hurts. It always hurts to lose. But I think it's just something that we're going to learn from and grow from. And in the future, hopefully in the near future, we'll look back on this game and realize that it made us better.
We're live here at Raising Cane's here in Cypress, Texas, with the Panthers Sports Report Live. Dr. Mike Prince along with Coach Shotgun Willie Simmons. Now, Coach, you were asked a question on the teleconference on yesterday that what was the difference between this year's team and last year's team, and you said that some senior leadership has been late to show up as of late, or have yet to show up as of late. How do you summarize it, and how do you address that to make the corrections to help that? Because there's only so much that you can do as a coach. You can prepare, as the old saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. What, in turn, are you all as a coaching staff doing to try and help address that particular issue?
Well, that's a great point, and it kind of alludes to what I just said. Last year's senior class, one was bigger in number. They were bigger in the amount of guys that were actually playing meaningful snaps than this year's senior class. But that senior class last year hadn't won. Their best season at Prairie View was 500. 5-5 and 6-6, and before then they were 4-7. And so when I came in and I gave them the blueprint to say, okay, we follow this blueprint, we'll win, and we'll win when everyone buys in. Those seniors last year made a decision amongst themselves that they were going to lead the rest of the team. You know, they did things that I never saw behind the scenes. You know, they had closed door senior meetings. They disciplined guys who missed workouts or missed study hall hours or, you know, didn't clean the locker room. They did that stuff. I never once had to discipline my team for not doing what they were supposed to do. And Courtney Brown did that. Brandon Medina did that. Glenn Hazley, Jordan Johnson, John, those guys did that themselves, and they won. And the senior class this year, they've tasted success. And the hope is that, okay, now that they've sniffed a little bit of success, they realize, okay, if we just keep doing this and work harder, we'll see more success. But I think it was the adverse. I think our guys got a little bit complacent. I think they felt that it was going to be easy because at times it was easy last year. You know, we won some games last year by 30, 40 points, and it was easy, even when we started slow, like a Pine Bluff. We go down 14-0 and win 56-14 or 56-21. So I think it took a game like Saturday for our seniors to realize, you know what, it's not going to be easy. And for us to be as good as we need to be, you know, we got to do some things different. And ironically, last year's Grambling game was a turning point for those seniors. We lost Grambling. You know, we had a come to Jesus meeting that next day, and the guys didn't lose a game after that. So, you know, hopefully we can duplicate that and do the same thing this year. And hopefully our seniors will take the mantle and be the type of guys that they need to be. And yesterday, again, was a great practice. I mean, Trey had a great practice. Lakeith O'Leary, J.P. Bryant, you know, Cleveland Sims, Josiah Freeman. And those guys really had spirited practices yesterday. And so I think this Grambling loss, even though everyone in PV Nation wanted the game, and it hurts like crazy to lose a game against a rival with so much riding on it. But, you know, our success will never be measured off one game. You know, and that loss does not define us as a football team or young men. And our success will be defined at the end of the season and years down the road when we see what type of young men that we're producing. And so, you know, again, I think Trey's going to grow up a lot from that week. I think the rest of those guys are going to grow up a lot. And I think you'll see a different ball club with a different mindset moving forward.
Now, one thing that you just made mention when you mentioned quarterback Trey Green, there's a lot of emotion and tide when it comes to collegiate sports in particular. You have that allegiance with alumni from out the country, some looking from afar, some will speculate. And when they look at the numbers on paper, they'll see, for instance, on Saturday, 20 of 40 incompletions, but more importantly, the big 3 interceptions. A total of 9 interceptions in 5 games versus 3 interceptions in a total of 11 games last year. And to the demise of some, they're saying, we need to change. We need to do this. How do you address that to PV Nation?
Well, you know, the thing to understand is I played the position, you know, and so I have a certain level of respect for Trey that other people don't have. And I watch the film every day as a head coach. I evaluate our film. And let me be the first to tell everyone listening, Trey Green wasn't the only one that didn't play well Saturday. Again, out of 140 plays, 146 plays, we had 140 missed assignments. Trey only played 64 himself. So if he made 64 of them, which he didn't, that means we still made 80 more. You know, so we didn't play well in any phase Saturday. Offensively, we couldn't run the ball. That's the offensive line. All Trey Green does on the run play is hand the ball off. We had 84 yards rushing. We averaged 3.8 yards per attempt. That's not Trey Green. That's the offensive line. That's the running back. That's receivers blocking on the perimeter. We threw it 40 times. He only completed 20, but we had probably 7 or 8 drops. That's not Trey Green. You know, he's throwing the ball where it needs to be. You put those 8 completions on there, he's 28 for 40. That's a pretty good completion percentage. That's another probably 100 yards added to his passing number, so he's throwing for 300 yards. You know, the turnovers are inexcusable. I mean, he's trying to force balls at times that he doesn't need to force. You know, but again, we're not losing because of Trey Green. You know, winning is a team effort, losing is a team effort. And he just happens to play the one position that gets all of the limelight. He gets more credit when we win games than he deserves, and he gets more blame than he deserves when we lose games. Again, the blame should fall on me. Trey Green doesn't deserve the blame. I do. I'm the head coach. It's my job to get these guys prepared to play, and I didn't do that. And so 100% of the blame falls on me. And Trey will play better. He you know, it means more to him than people realize. It's not like he's just out there just doing his own thing because he wants to. He wants to do well. You know, he wants to be the face of the program. You know, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's pressing. You know, he's trying to be the people pleaser. He's trying to do everything right, and sometimes that puts stress and pressure on young men that they're not ready to handle yet. And Trey's was thrust into this opportunity situation last year as a first-time starter. He's not a guy that's been starting since his freshman year. This is only his 11 games last year, 5. This is only his 16th start. And it takes a long time to become a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Drew Brees. Those guys didn't become that overnight. It took reps. It took some failures. Peyton Manning got his butt killed his first year at Indianapolis. I think they won 2 games, and he only left as all-time leading passer in yardage, touchdowns, and all other kind of records. So, Trey's going to take a lot of the responsibility, and he understands that. He wears big shoulders playing the quarterback position. He's got to play better. He understands that also. But, again, our loss Saturday is not solely on Trey. And if I felt like this coaching staff felt like there was a better option than Trey Green to play, then trust me, we would have played him. And we got confidence in Jalen Morton, but Trey's done enough and continues to do enough to let us know that he's our unquestioned leader. He's the guy that makes us go. But he needs help. He can't do it by himself. We got to play better up front. It starts up front. We must play better in the offensive line. We must be better out wide. We lost Kadero Hodge to injury early in the season, and that's taking its toll on us, and somebody else has to step up now. But there are a lot of moving parts and things that go to a quarterback having successful performances, and we need those things to come together for Trey to get back to playing at the level that people are accustomed to.
Now, with you being in that former shoes that Trey is in, being the quarterback on the collegiate level, what's the personal note, without going into full detail, that you've shared with Trey that can help make him a better person as well as a quarterback? Because when your playing days are over with, you still got to be a quality person. So what is it that you've been able to take a piece of Willie Simmons and give to Trey that he could be, a little bit better down the road?
It's simple. You know what to do. Just do it. It's that simple. Trey knows what to do. He knows where to go with the football. He knows all the reads. He knows the concepts. He understands the defenses that he's going against. He just has to go do it. Stop pressing. Stop trying to make it happen, and just allow it to happen. And last year he did that. And I think last year he felt he didn't have to be Superman every Saturday because he had Superman behind him wearing number 3. It's either turn around and hand that ball to Jonte Hebert or throw it out there to Jonte Hebert, and, he masked a lot of things. Last year we had some times up front we didn't block very well, didn't block anybody, and number 3 made 3 or 4 guys miss, and so that stuff kind of goes unnoticed. Well, this year, we don't have the running backs that are as dynamic as Jonte. DeWanye Tucker will be. He's showing that he can make plays and do some great things, but he's still an 18-year-old freshman. And the other backs I have are more downhill runners, power runners. They're not the make-you-miss type guys. And so we're better. We're not as good up front as we were last year. Those guys have a lot of work to do to get to playing at a level that we are accustomed to seeing. And but once we do that, once the receiving core comes together and somebody emerges as a possible go-to guy, again, I think you'll see Trey start to play better because as a quarterback, you want to have that guy that you feel like, okay, push come to shove, I can throw it up and he's going to make a play. I'm in trouble, or when I throw it, there's a good chance he's going to catch it. When I was really good as a quarterback, mainly in high school, I had that. My receiver was a FBS player as well, came with me to Clemson. And at Clemson, I had a Derek Hamilton. I had Kevin Youngblood. I had guys like that you knew was going to make plays. Last year, he had Nick Petrie. And then Kadero Hodge started coming to his own. And even LeStrap made plays last year that he's not necessarily making this year. So, again, I can't reiterate it enough. I understand the pressure of it that Trey's getting. 1, because I've been in that position, and 2, because I'm the head coach. So I understand the pressure that people are placing on Trey Green to say, oh, well, he's not playing well. But, again, there are a lot of things that play a factor in that. And we're going to work hard to get it fixed. But, again, I got the full confidence in Trey. This coaching staff does, his teammates do, and I'll be shocked if Trey doesn't bounce back this week and have a stellar performance.
Well, we're talking with Coach Willie Simmons live from Raising Cane's here in Cypress, Texas for the Panthers Sports Report Weekly. I'm Dr. Mike Prince. Now, Coach, let's talk about some positives, if you will, because when people are listening to this episode of this week's show, they would think we're 1-3 versus being 3-1. And yes, we do need some help, but as I was taught, help is always on the way, but you just got to maintain and do what you're supposed to do to cover your end of the deal. Let's talk about the Chad Williams Terrence Singleton matchup. Singleton had the assignment of following Chad Williams all the way around. Even though he got a 14-yard touchdown pass, he was held to 6 receptions for 83 yards. In my opinion, you did what you were supposed to do to keep him in check and let other players be a factor. How do you assess Singleton's play on last week?
I thought he had a great performance. The one touchdown was a screenplay. So of course he's being blocked by another receiver. Chad's coming underneath and linemen are coming out, and even on that play, 2 guys are right there to make the play, and we just don't make it. And so you can't blame that on Terrence. He's getting blocked by somebody other than the guy that's gotten the ball. The one deep pass that Chad caught, we were supposed to be blitzing, and the guy didn't blitz. So the quarterback was able to sit back in the pocket and make ice cream, and he got bit on a double move, and so that's not him as well, because again, it's not it's his teammates not doing what they're supposed to do. But you take those 2 plays away, and Chad has 4 catches for probably 30 yards. So again, I thought Terrence had a phenomenal performance. He continued to play at an extremely high level. He's a passionate young man, really, really cares, and we need more of that. We need more guys playing like Terrence is playing, not just because of his physical gifts, because he is physically gifted, but just because of his approach to the game. And that's something that I'm going to challenge him to be more of a leader. He's a transfer, and so coming in, he was more so trying to fit in with the guys and not create division. He came in and took Dominique Weaver's spot, and Dominique Weaver was second team all-conference last year. And so when things like that happen, you worry sometimes as a player, or will the guys not like me? Weaver's well-liked on the team. And so he really just wanted to fit in, but now that he's an integral part of what we do, we're going to challenge him more to be a leader, to be more vocal, because, again, that's the one thing I think this year that we're missing is just that true senior leadership, guys that will, again, help the younger guys or the underclassmen understand what it truly takes, and to be able to reinforce the message that we're trying to convey to them every day.
Now, we're speaking with Coach Willie Simmons. Fell short this past weekend to Grambling in the State Fair Classic by the score of 36-16. Panthers jump out to an early 16-0 lead. And I think anything that was probably rough for you to sleep over the weekend, man, you were shut out for 3 quarters. As an offensive-minded person as you are, what do you attribute that to? Was it more of a physical play from Grambling's side in combination with lack of execution, or for lack of a better explanation, did they just want it more than we did on this past weekend?
I think it's both. I really think they wanted it more. Grambling played like the team that said Prairie View was standing in our way of getting to the championship. Prairie View played like the team that said, well, we're on our way to the path, and then Grambling's somewhere around here
on the to-do list.
Yeah, and so one team played with a fire in their eyes and a vendetta against us, and we got beat by Grambling last year. But you wouldn't have thought that by the way the guys came out as far as the energy. We didn't play as if we owed them something. And again, maybe that's my fault. Again, I didn't take the approach during the week of revenge. Because I didn't think that revenge needed to be a motivating factor. The way I operate, we have a goal, and this team is standing in the way of our goal. So I was going to approach Grambling the same way that I approach everybody. You're standing in the way of what I'm trying to get to, and so it's my job to kick that down. And so when my preparation, my mindset is just that. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. I'm going to go at it the same way. Well, some people operate better from motivation to say, oh, you beat me last year, you kept me from winning it last year, so I'm going to go in mad at you and really try to take you out. Well, maybe that's the approach that I should have taken with the team, because we didn't play as if we felt this team could keep us from going to the SWAC championship. And they did the opposite. They played, we started fast, we jumped out early, and they didn't quit. They came and kept playing, and our guys kind of took the pedal off the metal, so to speak. And so, a lot of that attributed to the energy and the enthusiasm. I thought they were a tougher team, to be frankly honest. Up front, again, when you talk about toughness, you look at the offensive and defensive line play. I thought they, pushed us around a little bit on offense, pushed our defensive linemen around a little bit. And then, we could never establish the ground game. Aside from Dwayne Tucker's touchdown run, we didn't have any explosive plays in the run game. And everything was 3 yards here, 2 yards there, 4 yards there. So it made it extremely tough for us to run the football. And if we can't run the ball, we're going to have a hard time scoring, because, again, we're not as talented out wide as we were in the beginning of the season. Cadaro's hurt, Ray Jackson's hurt. So you take two talented guys and take them out, and now you have other guys who hadn't played as many reps starting for you. It takes some of the production down, and now we're challenging those guys to be more productive. But again, I think it's attributed to everything you said. I think they wanted it more. Our execution just was not there, and I obviously didn't do a good enough job as a play caller, putting us in position to be successful. There were some things that worked in the first half that didn't work in the second half. They made some adjustments. They made better adjustments than we did, and that's the one thing that they hadn't shown. They've been true to what they've done all year. They play their defense, and they say, well, if you score, you're gonna score on us. But they made some adjustments the second half, and we didn't do enough to counter those adjustments. Kind of left it in Trey's hand to get us in the right play, and I think he got flustered a little bit, started overthinking some things, and got us in some bad football plays. So again, but hindsight's 20/20. We'll move on from that game and put it past us. This show will probably be the last time I talk about the Grambling game, and our focus shifts to Alabama State. We have to play better. We have to get back to playing our style of football, which is running the football, controlling the ball, getting first downs. Our first down percentage right now is not very good. I think we're last in the league in first downs per game. Last year we led the league by a wide margin. We're one of the top 10 teams in the country. My third down percentage is not not very good. Last year we led the conference. Right now we're middle of the pack, and so we have to execute better on first down, which leads to easier third down attempts, and we got to convert them. And if we do those things, we keep the ball, we play with tempo, we're able to roll. Again, last year we led the conference in time of possession. This year I think we're dead last, and so we don't have the ball a whole lot. Our goal is 80 plays. We haven't run more than 65 plays in a game yet. And so there are a lot of things that attribute to us not having the type of offensive success we've had in the past, and we got to figure that out. At this point in the season, we're doing a self-scout to look at ourselves and see what we do well, what we haven't done well, and we're trying to adjust to those things. So, again, hopefully we can put it together in a week's time and be ready to play a solid game this Saturday against Alabama State.
Well, it is homecoming week here for Prairie View and Coach Shotgun Willie Simmons, and their next opponent will be, if you hadn't heard, the Alabama State Hornets. And we'll be right back to talk about that and a little bit more when we return. You're listening to the Panther Sports Report live from Raising Cane's in Cypress, Texas, and we'll be right back.
To be a champion, you must win. 10 teams strive, but on Judgment Day, only one can rise. December 3rd in Houston, Texas. Be a part of the experience at the 2016 Toyota SWAC Football Championship in NRG Stadium. A champion will rise. Visit www.swac.org for more information.
Hello, this is Dr. Mike Prince with the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Just want to remind you that we are in the middle of our listening partner drive. For one small donation of $72 a year, you can help us continue to bring you shows like the Willie Simmons Show, the Mike Prince Show, the Sports Report, and all of our local, high school, and regional coverage. Your donation does make a difference. Visit our website today at OBN-Radio.com and make your donation today.
And welcome back. We are live here at Raising Cane's. Dr. Mike Prince and Coach Shotgun Willie Simmons said we were not going to talk about it, so we're going to move forward. This week's opponent, Alabama State, homecoming. But before we do that, let's tell you what's going on in the world of PV Nation sports. Volleyball will take on Alabama State tonight at the Baby Dome. Prairie View, 4-2 in conference play, and they're 5-11 overall. Victorious last night over Alabama A&M, 3-1. And then we'll have soccer in motion on Friday, October the 7th. Prairie View will be taking on Ed Alcorn, and they'll take on Mississippi Valley State. That's Sunday, October the 9th. Panthers on the soccer field are 1-2 in conference play, 1-9 overall. And if you missed it on last night, it was Monday Madness featuring the men and women's introductions for the 2016-17 campaign, as Coach Raven Justice and Coach Byron Smith had a good old time last night. 3-point plays, 3-point contest, and the slam dunk. Pretty good turnout at the beginning of homecoming weekend of festivities, of the week of festivities. Cross country will be at the Aggieland opener on October the 7th, both men and women competing out in College Station. And of course, you can listen to the Panthers homecoming game here on the KPVU 91.3 FM, your Jazz and Heritage NPR membership station. That kickoff is scheduled for 2 p.m. and the pregame show will start at 1:30. Of course, you can listen live to yours truly, Dr. Mike Prince, as we do the play-by-play. Now, Coach, we're talking about homecoming, and this is truly homecoming. It's been a month since you've been at home, and you're taking on a team who got their first win, who's coming in with a little ammunition, if you will. What's going to be some of the keys and approaches for this week's contest?
Well, you know, a lot of them are the same. One, we have to control our emotions. Homecoming is always a huge week. There are going to be a ton of people on campus all week long. It started yesterday, and it's going to extend throughout the entire week. So for our guys, it's about blocking out all the outside distractions and keeping their minds focused on the task at hand, and that's the football game on Saturday. So if we can do that, you know, continue to have a great week of preparation, get to know our opponent, and do the things, the little things that it takes to be successful, I think we'll be fine. But they're going to be a challenge. Brian Jenkins is a good football coach. He has a track record of success, and it hadn't shown in his time at Alabama State. But again, I think it's only a matter of time before he gets those guys turned around, and they're going to play hard. They're going to try to play fast offensively. Again, their coordinator is no stranger to Prairie View A&M. Mark Orlando was the offensive coordinator before I took the job, and the offensive line coach was the offensive line coach here.
Prince Pierce.
Yeah, there's some familiarity with our football players here and what we do, and so. I expect them to come in excited. Again, they got their first win, so they have the momentum. We're coming off a loss, and so they won't be intimidated by us. You know, Coach Jenkins used his mind games yesterday during his coach call, saying that they just hope they can stay on the same field with us. We're not buying that. You know, of course, we know they're going to come in and play extremely hard. You know, they have no reason to fear us as a football team. So for us, it's going to be a 60-minute football game. You know, we have to finally put one together for 4 quarters and play fast on offense, convert first downs, get first downs, convert third downs, and score points when we get in the red zone. Defensively, we have to swarm to the football. You know, we have to get lined up. They're a tempo offense, so we have to do a great job of communicating and getting lined up. We got to tackle. They have a very dynamic running back. Khalid Thomas is a shifty runner, so we got to corral him and get him on the ground. And we got to contain their quarterback. You know, we can't let him get in a rhythm. He hadn't necessarily had a game where he's lit it up just yet, but with the scheme they run, it's only a matter of time. So we have to do a good job of keeping him pressured, keep him uncomfortable, give him different looks to make him make quick decisions and be opportunistic when the time comes. You know, get back to getting sacks and interceptions and fumbles and things of that nature. And we got to win the special teams phase. You know, we got to do a great job of winning the field position battle. You know, on kickoffs, we got to cover hard, get down the field, and corral them. If we have to get kickoff returns, let's do a better job of blocking up front, give our returners a chance to hit holes, get all our punts off and cover, and then if we have to line up for them to punt, you know, let's see if we can block one. You know, if not, let's field the punt clean. Last couple of weeks, we put one on the ground, lost one against Valley, and recovered the one last week. But we can't do that. We can't put the ball on the ground. We got to be sound in that phase. So if we can do those things in those 3 phases, I like our chances. Behind our home crowd, it's going to be a sellout. There's going to be a lot of energy there. Looking forward to an electric environment, and it's going to make it extremely difficult for them to hear and communicate calls, and so hopefully that'll give us the edge as we get ready to try to get back in the win column.
Well, you'll have a chance to get back into the win column. It will be homecoming 2016, and for those that are listening, remember that the Panthers are still 3-1 in conference play, and they are yet still in the hunt. Just got to take care of the business at hand and hope for a little help down toward the end of the road. Coach, believe it or not, we've run out of time, my man. It is always a pleasure and honor to be with you, sir, here at Raising Cane's, as we will conclude this week's edition of the Panthers Sports Report live from Raising Cane's. I'm Dr. Mike Prince. He is Coach Shotgun Willie Simmons, and our time is up for today. Be blessed, and remember the Panthers will go into action Saturday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, October the 8th, as they'll be hosting the Alabama State Hornets, and the kickoff time will be at 2 p.m., and we'll go live with the pregame show at 1:30 p.m. Until next week, be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.